See, what's interesting is that we think that if you go to a private school, because you've got money, that you're going to have a better education than going to a normal state school, which anyone can go to. But when you actually go into their lives, it's actually the opposite. A lot of these rich kids who go to, like, say, private schools, they have a lot of problems because with comes money, comes with, like, say, big egos. They have everything, and they don't really know how their parents got it. So they're spoilt from the minute they're born, and so they take everything for granted. And if you go into, like, say, normal schools, that people actually end up a lot more happier in life. Not maybe as successful, because just because you're successful doesn't mean you're happy, but a lot of
Mhm.
normal people end up just being kind of happier compared to rich kids who have to live up to this expectation of their father and hasn't really had no idea how that person got the wealth. Um, yeah, take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can speak to that firsthand, being someone that, in full transparency, kind of got judged, I guess you could say, growing up because of my parents' wealth, which is naturally a blessing, right? But what people don't realize is, like you mentioned, unless you have to figure things out on your own, you don't have the same drive, the same momentum to find those areas of success or fulfillment that others might long for earlier on because they're, in a sense, forced to make it on their own. I'm very fortunate that my parents, with the blessings that they gave us, also taught us the significance of hard work. And we were taught at a very early age that, good things come to good people, but ultimately, somewhere along the line, someone had to work for what you have. So they've always imposed on us the idea of philanthropy, of giving back whenever possible. I think that having a higher education is great because it exposes you to different things, but there's alternatively something to be said about being around people from different walks of life. I'm a huge fan of diversity and taking the perspectives of alternative races and gender identities or whatever it might be. And sometimes when you're, I guess, in an institution that is of a higher caliber, you might not get the same exposure to the
Well,
diversity that exists in, maybe, I mean, lesser I don't even want to call it lesser quality education by any means, because I think that there are great teachers everywhere. You've just got to find them, right? um yeah, it's an interesting question or topic to ponder, without a doubt.
so I went to a Christian school, and during, like, the first part of school, which we call primary, all my friends at that time were going to the common school, which was, like, you could say, the popular school that everyone chose. I went to a Christian school, and so at that time it was like I don't want to go there because all my friends were going there. They weren't friends; they were just people there. Looking back, I realized that was the best choice for me. But I got into a Christian school. Everyone there had, their parents were typical university people, mortgage, big, like, £500,000 house, right? And me, I just had a normal house. My parents didn't go to university. It was just the normal, you work for your money, you get a house, and you enjoy life as possible. So I was the outcast of those types of people. It's interesting because English literature, you've got, like, reading, speaking, and writing. I was the only person in the whole of the year who didn't take the English lit. So to me, the education system is about the following mindset, robotic mindset. They are preparing you for the corporation industry where you follow what the boss says. So it's about following exactly what you're told and don't ask questions. So everyone's brains are used to reading a massive book. And then there's, so what did John in 1944 do to Sally when they entered the thing? And their brain remembers exactly what John did. Me, for example, I used to literally just look at the question and read through the page to find something along the lines of that to find the answer, because I couldn't read all of that and remember because my brain was thinking about other stuff and I got time to read all this nonsense. So yeah, it's all about being part of the system, whereas the person who you're working for is the entrepreneur, boss, mindset leader who creates, like you and me, for example. um and so we're not prepared for that because it's about working for other big people, and at that time, before you've made your empire, like your dad or mum did, whatever, you're just following the system until you get out of it. And yeah, people who have money already don't have that work ethic. A lot of successful people are driven by the fact that they never want to go back to what their childhood was like.
Mm.
So that's their constant kick up the backside. Like The Rock is a fine example, Dwayne Johnson. He never forgets where he came from. And he says when his back's against the wall, he has nowhere to go but forward. And it's true.
Yeah.
You look at so many people who have it, they take it for granted. And I do believe that people need to experience pain in order to know what that's like. So you don't go there. Otherwise, you just take life for granted.
Without a doubt. It's kind of funny that you say that, because believe it or not, pain is what sparked the idea for me to actually even go to private school. My parents got divorced unexpectedly when I was younger, and that was the first event in my life that opened my eyes to tragedy, to devastation, to heartbreak, to loss. Up until then, my life was the picture of perfection. And so I decided in that moment that my happiness was really the only thing that I could rely on. So with that said, I've always been the type that is exceedingly curious. I love to learn. I love to read. In my choice to go to private school, that was because I was eager to be around people that were excited to learn, where it was cool to get good grades, comparatively back at home where it wasn't as desirable to focus on your academics. Instead, everybody was concerned about what they were doing after school got out in terms of drinking, drugs, whatever it might be. So I took a course that was completely different from anybody else in my vicinity, I guess you could say. Going to private boarding school was completely outlandish for anybody in my area. So that was the first thing that I did that was independent, that was for me. And then from there, that was really the catalyst for a lifetime of searching for what was going to make me the happiest. Upon graduation, I chose not to go to college like the rest of my peers, and instead I chose to study abroad in Barcelona for a few months, and that was an experience unlike any other. Coming back, I gave formal education a whirl. I went to the Fashion Institute of Technology in New York City for jewelry design. And then again, I realized that wasn't really a great fit. So I decided to ditch that, save my time and my parents' money, and start creating jewelry that made me happy and made my customers happy. I didn't need to be graded for my creations. And that was, I guess you could say, the real start of my entrepreneurial path. I was making jewelry for spiritual people, Buddhas, Hamsa, stuff like that. And a good friend of mine said, "Hey, you should start marketing this to yogis." I said, "That's a great idea. What's yoga?" Took yoga, fell in love with it. Here I am 7 years later, a full-time yoga teacher, a mindset coach. One thing just led to the other, but that's because I didn't allow societal norms. I didn't allow these ideas of those above me, ahead of me, to restrict the path that I was desiring to pave for myself. And so I think that a lot attributes to that. Definitely my parents sharing that it matters to be humble, that you have to start from the bottom and work your way at the top. There's no job that's beneath me, especially I find now that every single encounter, every conversation, every interaction has something that you can learn from, that you can take away, that you can take something away from it, if that makes sense. So I appreciate everything I've endured thus far, the good, the bad, and to circle it back, without the pain, I would not be where I am today, in all honesty. And I can say that with pride, with confidence, with satisfaction, which is a blessing.
Like when you're aware of pain, you don't like that feeling, so naturally you don't want to have it. And so like, what's a life without pain? Well, it just is what it is. Like, it doesn't really exist. And like in the animal kingdom, their pain is having to walk, you say, and animals would have to migrate for days to find food. So their pain is their legs ache, they're hungry, they could be chased by a wolf. Like, everything in life has pain these days, because everything's given to us, food's provided for us, everything's given. We don't see what that person had to do once upon a time to get that, or what the employees have to do, long hours all through the night like Amazon, just to get that there. So we think, oh, this is an easy life. I click something on my phone and it comes, no pain. But yet there's an employee slaving away in a warehouse all night just to get that thing to you. And like the education system, it's like being the same for, say, like 100 years, when there was, say, maybe say 20 different types of jobs, say doctor, lawyer, I don't know, politician, a business person, a butcher, whatever, just like the main industries. Now there's like thousands of industries, a yoga teacher, making jewelry, and yet the system still only teaches like, religion, English, maths, science, all
Yeah.
of which is a load of bollocks, because who the fuck needs any of that crap? But that's the whole point. Is if everyone knew this type of mindset, we'd all be leaders, we'd all have businesses, and nobody be working for us because we'd all have our own business. So that's how society is structured. It's like if you think the grass is greener, you'll lose what you've got. If you think there's a better life, then you'll lose everything. So, for example, one person's got loads of money, they want a bigger house, and then they lose it and what they had, and then they compare it to other people who have nothing, and they had so much more anyway, and they lost everything. So yeah, it is crazy how there's so much opportunity out there, and yet people are this is why there's so many problems with the younger generation, because their brains are like, I can see and feel, I know there's more than this, and yet they're being taught all this nonsense at school. And then they go online, they see all these types of jobs. You could be a yoga teacher, a podcaster, and they're like 15 and they're like, I want to be a podcaster. And then they've got to go back to school and learn about algebra and like Pythagoras, and their brain's not focused in present. Their brain's focused elsewhere about what the Joe Rogan podcast said. And so all this education is a waste of time. Now their brains are like becoming leader brains, where they're thinking for themselves rather than just following and not thinking. So now you can't follow and lead, you can't think and follow. So now it's like no one's focusing, no one's listening, everyone's got anxiety and depression because their energy isn't present. So it's like nervous. And again, how do you solve it? Because this is how society's set up. And
You know what it
obviously,
is? The thing is, I find that society, people in general, are unwilling to sacrifice good for great. They are all too familiar with what works, with what feels comfortable. That the fear of the unknown is often debilitating for them. They'd rather just live in mediocrity than jeopardize a little bit of their security for a life of ultimate success. And it's too easy because their parents and their parents' parents and everybody else around them is wanting them to be a part of the herd and do what everybody else is doing. Often we get ridiculed for thinking outside of the box, for having alternative perspectives or offerings. But the beautiful thing is, if you can imagine it, it's real. And if there's a job out there that you are dreaming of and it doesn't exist, now more than ever, you have the opportunity to create it. But you just have to stay committed. You have to take action, because avoidance is what's going to kill you, right? Or maybe not kill you in the literal sense, but emotionally. If you are constantly worrying about the can'ts, the won'ts, the shoulds, the coulds, you're never going to get where you are constantly daydreaming of. And it's much more simple than people realize to actually be successful. It's just the little things. Common sense isn't always common practice. People have these lofty ambitions, but they don't actually take the time to sit down and figure out, okay, I want to lose 50 pounds. Well, what do I have to do each day consecutively to ensure that I'm getting closer to losing that 50 pounds? The dream is great, and that's an awesome place that you should be directing your energy. But you can't just visualize the pounds falling off. You have to simultaneously maybe get your body moving, eat slightly better or more mindfully if possible. There's action coupled with imagination. That's the real magic. It needs to be implemented. And too many people just wait. They sit and wait for life to happen to them or for them, but instead you have to take massive, messy action in pursuit of whatever it is that sets your soul on fire. And you know what, if you're unable to do so, then that's fine, but don't give any heat to those that are super eager and fired up to make a difference in this world.
that's the thing. It's so easy just to get a job, right? The boss does all the stuff you don't even see. You don't need to know about that. You're going to do one job and you get paid, say, 2 grand. 8 hours later, you go home to your house, your family, you go to the gym, you have dinner, whatever. It's too easy. But you've got to understand, like 8 hours of your life every day for the rest of your life, 2/3 of your life is focused on somebody else's thoughts and mindset and vision. compared to yourself. And then by the time you get home, you're too fucking tired to do anything. Like you go to the gym, you have dinner. Now you've got to go to bed if you actually want to have a good night's sleep where you've had enough sleep. Yeah. So not just like 8 hours, but you need to wake up naturally so your brain's had enough sleep compared to the amount of energy you use during the day. And so now you got to
Yep.
go to bed at like 7, you get back at 5, you go to the gym at
Do it
6.
all over
You
again.
you can't do that. And so um like my mum was part of the system, so why can't you just be a certain way? And what I realize is it's the same for everyone. When people want you to follow the herd, it's the pressures they feel from their peers, so their friends, their colleagues, the neighbors, the people at the gym. So what's your son doing today? Has he got a job yet? No. Oh, you've been making him pay rent and all that nonsense. And so they feel pressured by their peers, so they push it down on you. Get a job. So then when Maureen at the gym says, so has he got a job yet? Is he paying rent? Yes, he is. Good. That's what I like to hear. My son and all their sons are paying rent, so he should. And it's like, no, listen, you're all followers, you're all robots, you don't understand. This is the problem. Everyone's just following the leader off a cliff, and you're not even understanding like where does the cliff lead. You just follow him. So I literally can change my mum's mindset. She was always like, can't you just get a job? Can't you be normal? And I've always been an entrepreneur, doing what I want to do. Don't tell me what to do. Don't tell me no. To the point where it was like I had to change her mindset in order to live. Like to have a harmonious relationship with my mum, I had to teach her everything. Not like why I'm like I am, but change her mindset of how life is set up, how society is set up. We like the deeper source, so she would understand from, say, the foundation moving forward. You can't just say at step 10 tell her step 9 and 8, because she still doesn't really understand like 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you've got to like explain everything. And now, thankfully, she has that mindset, and she's following other, say, Instagram live people where they teach all this stuff that I've been teaching her for the last 7 years. So now it's like I can step down from teaching her this. She can listen to somebody else teaching her. So she's now programmed to listen to this, health and having enough sleep and gut microbiome and all this amazing shit, which I was trying to tell her for years. And so that is like such a blessing, because now there's no why are you doing that? Because now she understands, because the person she's looking at, the mentor, is that person like me. I'm doing what that person's doing, creating a platform, selling a book, doing YouTube live and shit like that. So now she's like, oh, now I get it. That is what he's doing. And it's like she didn't make a book overnight. It took a long time. Like we see all these people online where they've made it. He's been doing it for 7 years, and half
Yeah.
of them never made it. So all your work over 7 years, whatever, it's a long time. They don't see the shit you were doing in the beginning stages, all through the night, getting up at 2 in the morning, not showering, not eating, telling your friends you can't come out. They don't see that. They just go to work whilst that boss has done all that, and they get paid that paycheck.
Yeah. It's crazy. No, you're so spot on. I always think it's wild to realize there is no such thing as an overnight success. And that's why I like to share with my students, with my clients, that again, anything is possible as long as you commit to it. These people that have what you want, it's not on accident. It's because they chose each and every single day to do the things that you were too tired, lazy, hungover, busy to do. We all have the same 24 hours in a day. We can't make more time, but we can choose how we want to prioritize where and how we spend that time that we've been given. So I love this conversation. It's quite illuminating, right? Because not as many people are privy to what's possible for them. But I am hopeful that a huge chunk of the world is waking up to the possibilities, right? Because there are no limits when it comes to your career, when it comes to the ways that you could spend your days that are going to leave you feeling really full, because ultimately it's going to be um, love, happiness, compassion. It's overflowing. There's never not enough of it, right? So as if people could just start believing in this flow of abundance instead of scarcity, I think that we'd see even more of a change in the dynamics of career in general.
So have you heard of something called biorhythmic or biorhythms?
I have not, but I can imagine what it might be about based on based on
So
the name.
so what do you think it's about?
I'm assuming, well, bio is our life body. I'm assuming rhythms, maybe well, I'm super into the moon recently, and how we just kind of are so in sync with the lunar cycles. It's wild. If you haven't dipped your toes into that pond, I highly suggest it. But maybe how we have natural rhythms in terms of the times of the year, times of the month, maybe on a grander scheme. I don't know. You have my interest. You have my attention. Tell me more.
So I hadn't heard of this, but I was online and then I came across this thing, and I'd never heard of it. I mean, I'd understood the concept behind it. So, for example, God, Muslim, Christianity, Catholic, there's God. That's the whole point of the topic, right? So I understood that. Why do things just happen so easily for some people? Like they think of something and then it just happens, right? And then there's some people who just problems occur and occur and occur and again, right? So you could say that people have a certain luck when they're born. I then suddenly became aware that it also to do with energy vibration. If you've got a lot of
Mm-hmm.
energy, you've got a lot of brain activity, you can think for yourself, you can work stuff out. A lot of followers who just are taught and follow, they haven't built that brain part to work things out. So the energy doesn't raise, it just stays the same. When you think, you raise your energy, you activate different parts of the brain. It's like you just can't, you keep it, your brain just keeps getting stronger and stronger, right? That's why they say when you're older, you should start doing crosswords and shit to keep your brain active. And so you look at, like, say, normal people who just don't do anything, and that's why a lot of these people get disease and they die early because they're just following and they don't know what's going on. They get dementia because their brain's dead because they just weren't doing anything. So their energy is weak and getting weaker. Leaders, like for example, the Queen in my country, Queen Elizabeth, a lot of world leaders, they're all really old. Why? Because every day their brain is bloody active, right? The Queen's like 95 and she's having conversations like she's 10. And so it's all about keeping your brain active. And so the biorhythm is about essentially you have a certain vibration path led out. So you have no choice whether or not you're going to be successful or not. If your biorhythm is like you're not going to be successful, if that's like the path based on your energy, you won't be, no matter how hard you try. And if you have a certain biorhythm of success, you're going to be successful.
Okay, got it.
So it's like
Have you?
no matter what you choose to do, you're either going to kind of make it or not based on a biorhythm, like based on the
Yes.
vibrations you are and the people around you and the people you need to meet who are going to get you to that next level. It's like you need to know CEOs in order to get a potential position at another CEO company. But if you're a little if you're a farmer in the middle of the country and all you do is, like, herd the cows and all around you's farmers, well, the nearest CEO is, say, New York from, say, Alabama. That's like, I don't know, hours and hours away. So in order to get them, you've got to move your whole life, your family, your friends. But your energies are made up of farming and people, basic life. So your brain activity and energy is nothing like a CEO chief to have that level. So
Yeah.
it's all to do with the energies of what you are. Um,
Without a doubt. A few things actually come to mind right away as you say that. The first is a quote, and I apologize, I'm not entirely sure who said it initially, but it says, "Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right."
I said that to my mum
And
yesterday. I shouted up
yeah,
the stairs.
it's just so in alignment with what you were just speaking of, and that reminds me of Dr. Joe Dispenza. I'm not sure if you're familiar with
Oh yeah,
him or his work. He is so astounding when it comes to really informing you of the power of the mind, not only in a kind of metaphysical sense, but also he has the science, to back the efficacy of it all. And just also to kind of piggyback off of something you also mentioned, proximity is power, right? So you become like the 5 people you spend the most time with. Who is it that you are allowing to have an imprint on your personality, on your energy, on your thoughts, your emotions? All of that plays such a big part in, as you mentioned, that biorhythm, that frequency that you are emitting to the world, to those around you, especially the ones closest to you. So that's why I believe it's imperative that us as humans, we strive to continuously up level, and not to discredit the beauty that exists in our life presently, but to step into an eagerness for all that could be possible, as long as we stay focused and on track with the stuff that makes us feel our best and the people that make us feel our best as well.
So it's almost like if you have money in your family, the chances are you're going to have money in your life. Why? Because money makes money, and often you need money to get yourself started. And if you're around ambitious people, if your dad at the early age is saying you need to create, start making stuff, you're going to have the mindset of being creative and thinking, and he's going to be like, can you do it for me, rather than taking control and just saying, let me do it. So the child just goes, okay, lets the parents do it. So a leader mindset of a father, for example, means a leader mindset of a daughter, because you want your kids to become a reflection of you. So work it out yourself. And then I'm like, for fuck's sake, can't you just help me? Looking back now, it was actually so good for me that he used to be like, work it out. Even I used to get so pissed
Yeah.
off with I couldn't fucking do it. Like, fucking help me, for God's sake.
Yeah. No,
Now,
you've got to figure it out.
my brain is now designed to get past that freezing moment of I can't do it, to push
Yeah.
past. And that's the difference between success and not, because you need to, there's always going to be barriers when you're trying to create, because you're going into the unknown, and you like, there's always going to be shit you got to try and avoid. Whereas if it's already created for you, he's already done the work and removed all the obstacles. So that basically is saying that if you are, it's like, I don't believe in like everything happens for a reason. I believe we find reason for why it happened to like comfort ourselves, right? So there's no like bigger picture
Okay.
necessarily that God is creating and it's all written. But when you think about the biorhythmic thing, that's essentially saying that God has a plan. Whether there's a God or not, besides the point. That's like saying there is a plan set out based on your biorhythm. And if you have, say, a shitty low biorhythm, then you're going to have a shitty low vibrational life, versus somebody with a high biorhythm, they're going to have a great life. So, like, that means that essentially, no matter, it's almost like your path is already set. You know, poverty, you know, the rich get richer, poor get poorer. You could say it's nothing to do with politics and whatever. It's just the biorhythm, which is the universe. So you can't blame governments, you can't blame people. It's the universe based on your energy. Like, you were born at a specific time in the universe, and the energies from those planets gave you a certain vibration that you can't get out of that pattern. Hence why people struggle and they just never make it, and people
Yeah.
who are lucky just keep opening another business and it goes amazingly. Like, you know what I mean?
Well, I think it comes down to, this subconscious programming that has been hardwired into us all of our lives. So the rich get richer, the poor get poorer because maybe they are unwilling to foresee an alternative life for themselves. For example, I don't believe that the wealthy are wealthy because they want to have loads and loads of money in their bank account. They enjoy wealth because it allows them to live a life that they enjoy. They get to have nicer things, maybe treat themselves to more vacations. Those are things that money can buy. So that's why I think in the end people are after money. It's not the actual cash, right? That you're able to hold. It's the other things that essentially people are purchasing in the hopes that they make them more beautiful, more happy, more in love, whatever the case might be. But I do believe, and of course, I'm not God, so who's to say what is right or wrong? That despite the life that you have been born into, you do have the ability to radically transform and transcend your circumstances if you put in the work mentally and physically to get you there. Of course, there are exceptions, right? But if you want something bad enough, you fucking get it. I don't care what you say. There are people that have started at nothing that can prove that right. That can prove otherwise, that if people were to justify, this is the way I am and this is the way I'll always be. Okay, if that's how you feel, then right on. You are correct about that. But if you think that you can change, then I'd venture to say that you absolutely can, especially because we know now, um, the power of neuroplasticity, and in terms of our body on a cellular level, re or your cells are reborn. What is it, every 28 days? Or that might be the wrong the wrong time increment, but the cells essentially refurbish themselves every couple of years or whatever it is. So you are pretty much a different human constantly. But where you're showing up or how you're showing up on an emotional front and a spiritual front is in your hands. And I think that you do have the power to alter that biorhythm with enough diligence. I
Yes.
think.
So
But who knows?
I thought about this a lot. So if somebody wants something bad enough, they can make it happen. It just might take a little longer depending on your circumstances, right? But
Hmm.
I think because of online and you can see the alternative life, as I said, if you were saying living in the country and you didn't have technology, you wouldn't see New York, Trump Tower, all that millions of pounds worth of buildings and people going out for dinner. It just wouldn't exist. So you wouldn't have that drive, the connections to get there. But because everything's online and you can see everything, you have a chance to change your mindset. So if you didn't know the New York lifestyle existed, then you wouldn't have anyone to teach you that new knowledge and raise your brain activity. You'd say be country, brain activity, and knowledge. So in order
Yeah.
to get something that you want, you need to acquire new information, new knowledge, because otherwise you don't, there's nothing to chase because you don't
Yeah.
know what you're chasing. So you can make anything happen if you really want it bad. For example, if somebody was living in poverty and had nothing and they came across a YouTube video of this person with a sports car, that is enough of a spark and a seed that can be planted in him to find a way to get out of there. So he'd get a job selling, I don't know, bacon sandwiches, right? Knowing that he needs enough money to go to New York to see that car. Then he comes home with such drive because he's now seen the buildings, he's seen everything there, that is his drive. So if you've got one seed, if at a younger age an uncle, an auntie, a grandparent said you can do anything you want to, that's enough to create anything you want. But if you never have that person saying you can be anything you want, like, no, you've never heard that before, and you've not got a YouTube video to see New York, it's hard to get out of it. And like anything, we want things that we haven't got. That's the drive to get them, because obviously when you get there there's always someone else, right? Like
Oh,
you have,
always.
you've got a bigger house and you want a bigger car and you have a new wife and you want another wife. So it's the drive. But yeah, people can create anything they want, but they need a seed. If they've not got a seed, or that grandparent say you could be who you want, I've studied this, there's pretty much no hope. Not that it's a bad thing. You don't have the need. You don't need the hope. You don't see any alternative. Like, you've accepted that's what it is. So it's
Of
not that they
course.
have a choice. So that difference between somebody with a seed and no seed is a difference between making it or not. I suppose you could say it's the negative and the positive, and then the neutral is that seed that got somewhere there in a negative but shouldn't have been, and then that kid made it out and then created an empire. Does
Yeah,
that
well,
make sense?
ultimately, I feel like what got you here is not going to get you there. So, no matter where you are in life, if you want to take it to the next level, you have to be willing to get a little bit uncomfortable so that you can grow and expand, right? And like you mentioned, there has to be some sort of motive, drive, and aspiration that's leading you towards that higher place. Otherwise, you're probably just a-okay with the way things are. And I don't want to discount that. That's awesome too. Sometimes people are genuinely okay with less across the board in all areas. So not everybody needs to be an entrepreneur. We do need the people that are doing the traditional jobs, because then the world wouldn't go round. There's an ass for every seat, my mom used to say. So I think that we just need to start
Mm.
appreciating people for who they are. The universe, God, whatever we want to call it, it doesn't matter to me. It created the stars and the moon and you too. So there's a reason that you're here. But your mission while you're on this earth is to figure out why you were put here. What is your mission? What gifts can you share with the world? Because you might not be the same as me, but that doesn't mean that you're any less significant or special than I am. You just haven't uncovered the gifts that you were made to share with the world.
When you say made, right? So people always say, I was made for this, I was born for this. Do you think that's an ego thing? Like, they feel so passionate about something that it's like, I was made for this. Like, people say, for example, on Instagram, they say I'm Kylie's mum. It's a child, but they say I'm Kylie's mum. Like, they feel that they're so proud that I'm not just a mum, I'm Kylie's mum. And it's like, to the world, Kylie's just another human being out of billions, and it's just a name. But I'm
Mhm.
Kylie's mum, and I analyzed that, right? And it's like, people say I was born to do this, but it's like, if that we are just a bit of a bacteria that just evolved from eating, were you really born to do anything? Because you could say that everything was created by somebody else, And if they didn't do that, then this wouldn't be here. So let's say Jeff Bezos didn't create Amazon, right? You got some factory worker really enjoying stacking the shelves. He's saying, I was born to do this, man. It's meant to be. God. It's like, well, hang on a second. If Jeff Bezos didn't create this, like he could have easily died when he was younger because he had a heart disease or whatever. This wouldn't have been here. So if you're born to do it, you're saying that this was always going to happen. Or if you didn't have Amazon, you'd be doing someone else. So would you say you were born to do that? Or is it that we like to attach ourselves emotionally, whatever, to something that gives us a purpose, to make us feel good? And it doesn't matter whether it's right or wrong, if there's a God, if there's a purpose, if your life is written. If you feel fantastic doing something, you said that's your purpose. And that's the end of it. That's why there shouldn't be religious wars, because your God's unique to you and your brain, different to that God. Like it doesn't matter whether it's the same one or not. It's unique to you. Like if you believe there's an afterlife, it doesn't matter whether there's science that says there is or there isn't, or whether I think there is or there isn't. It's what gives you a feeling of I'm going to see my family again after I die, which keeps you going in this life. And it's not about right and wrong.
Yeah, that's such a great question, or just topic of conversation. I think it's a little bit of both. Ego, that's heavy, right? I think primarily that we all live to find our purpose, our mission, our passion. So if being Kylie's mom is what lights Kylie's mom up on fire, then rock on. Be the best Kylie's mom that you can. As long as you're not losing your own identity by stepping into that role. I think that too often people lose themselves in the desire or the perceived responsibility to take care of everybody else. Jeff Bezos, if he didn't create Amazon, would somebody else have? Maybe. And that would be great. If not, then that would be great too. I would venture to say that as long as people are feeling really in touch, really in alignment with whatever it is they are doing, then that's the mission, that's the goal. Even if we are just a speck of dust that is passing through space and time for the smallest, increment of this lifetime, we should all strive to find that, whatever that is. It could be painting, it could be fishing, whatever it is. If that's your thing, if you were made for that, then rock it, then own it. I think the bigger issue is when people on the outskirts try to condemn you for being what you are. Let everybody be who they want to be, and then the world could just be a better place in my perspective, in my point of view. I don't know if that answered the question, but that was my interpretation.
I don't think it was a question. I think I was just like ranting.
Yeah.
See, what was I going to say? Fuck, I've lost it.
It always comes back if it's important enough.
So speaking on that, if you notice that if you process every thought because you feel like I have to go through this thought motion, otherwise I'm not going to be able to do anything else, that if you just distract yourself or meditate, you forget that thought and never comes back in your head. As you said, so many thoughts are just not relevant, right? If a thought is relevant, it will come back. Like if you've got to pick the kids up, I was like, what was I doing? Shit, I got to pick them up. But then most of our thoughts are just things we hear, things we see, things that other people are thinking on the other side of the planet that is becoming part of our thoughts. So if you just meditate, focus on someone else, those thoughts disappear. And so you think to yourself, wow, all of this time I've not processed that thought. How many times have I processed that thought that has no relevance? And you think, wow, I spent half my life processing thoughts unnecessarily that are just me going in the motion of brain activity. And the more you use your brain, the more you charge it. And so the more you charge it, the more thoughts. But you think, wow, wasted so much time of just working out, thinking about nonsense. Because if you do read something randomly, your brain forgets it. And that's how I learned to meditate, by the way. I just sort of, I used to be in the toilet having a shit, and I'd start thinking, and I'd read the shampoo writing on the bottle. So I'd read read the ingredients, read think about it. Businesses spend so much time writing the branding and the writing and the little quote. You just squirt it on your hand and wash your hair. But how often do you read the whole bottle and every single label and everything on it? I never used to do that because I used to be thinking all the time. And so it flipped. Every time I was about to think, I'd quickly read something on the shampoo bottle. And then what I was thinking about, I don't even remember. And that's the meditation, the part of not going through that motion of a thought. And it was really hard. But Yeah.
You know, they say we have anywhere from 50 to 60,000 thoughts a day, and 90% are the same exact thoughts as yesterday. So when you start to get really familiar, really aware with the thoughts, the dialogue that might be consuming you day in, day out, you are that much more able to handle things in an appropriate way, I feel, because awareness is the first step of anything in terms of making change for better or for worse. If you don't know that something's going wrong, there's no way that you can do any differently. Meditation is an interesting practice for those that it works for, that for those that are willing to give it a chance. I find most recently I resonate the most with Tibetan singing bowls, like a sound bath. I lay on either my yoga mat, or I put an acupressure mat that has a little spiky things that get into your is it your nerves? I don't know, whatever it's hitting, it's painful, but it feels so good. And I put the Tibetan sound singing bowls on, and it just slips me away into a trance, and my mind is no longer focused on anything in the past, anything of the future. I am just right there in the only moment that ever exists, the now, which is quite beautiful. So that's also something that I encourage to those that are finding it difficult to integrate a formal meditation practice. Instead of, sitting cross-legged, eyes closed, this really stereotypical image that people have within their heads, just become a more, like that Buddha sitting, just become more aware, more mindful in whatever moment you can. I find most recently my biggest meditative moments are when I'm waiting in line at the post office or at a restaurant for my food, and it's taking way longer than I would hope, or something like that. When I'm being tested, when I'm being triggered, that is my meditation. That's my chance to come back and say, okay, how do I find a state of calm here? How do I come slightly more tranquil given the chaos that's going on around me? And chaos could be something really extreme or really nothing at all, but that's of course based on our interpretation. And that's something I'm coming to learn, which is really funny also. Circumstances are what they are. We identify them, and that's what makes them have more depth in our hearts. We label it as good, bad, happy, sad, but really things are just things. People are just people. And we impose the lens through which we see the world onto all that it is we are observing. It's pretty wild when you start to realize that across the board.
Yeah, like, so you go into the post office and there's a massive queue, and that internal dialogue commentator kicks in. Why is she doing that? Why did she do that for? She could have done that. Why didn't she go? Like, it's just commentating, like it's like a film. David
Yep.
Attenborough, like, this is a whale. This is a whale floating from the Pacific Ocean. Yeah. So it's like it's narrating every fucking thing, every single thing. Oh, she dropped her purse, and so that becomes people's life, right?
Of
And
course.
when people just start to just not have that, and obviously it takes a lot of work to get to that point, when people just are in silence and they're just present and awareness, if you notice that cue, just it's like it could be half an hour or 2 minutes, it merges into one because you're so content in that same vibration that time doesn't exist, and then before you know it, you're there. And let's just say that post office is always a really, really, really busy post office, right? And she's used to going to her local one, then no one's there. So she's in this big post office saying, can you hurry up? Post offices aren't supposed to be like this, based on her perception of what her little local one was. So as you said,
Mm-hmm.
the same situation to other people, it's usual on a Monday afternoon for the queue to be this big, and everyone's just accepting it. But then this woman is not used to big queues. She's getting angry, thinking, this is atrocious. You should speed up. Where's the staff here? That's unique to her. So it's just, yeah, every
Exactly.
situation is unique
Exactly.
to how
You.
somebody, you need a compromise. So in order to say this is painful, it's like, well, have you been punched in the face before? Like, what's pain? You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
everything is
No, of
about,
course.
yeah, it's about the comparison. Like, you appreciate being poor, so you want wealth, and if you have wealth, you don't realize what it is like to be poor, so you take it for granted. Everything is like a mixture of the two. You don't know what, we don't appreciate the sun if it's sunny all the time. You want it to rain and piss it down, so it's like, yes, the sun's out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Perception isn't always reality. whether we realize that or not, so I'm
Yeah,
chewing on this. I think it's cool
perceptions
to.
in our brain, whereas the reality is what it is. It's like that tree is just growing. That's it. That's it. There's nothing else. That tree is just growing. It's just the tree, right? It's just the tree, right? Our perception is like, well, it's called a tree. That tree's different to that tree. Um, we put perceptions on it. Um, so yeah, everything is about perception. Like everything is divided by two in our head based on something else we've seen or haven't seen.
Dualities, yeah. And I often find too, I've heard this in the past, there's three sides to every story also, right? Your side, the other person's side, and what really happened. And that goes back to what we were just speaking on. We see things through the lens that we choose to see them through. If you are a hateful person, you're going to see hate. If you're a loving person, you're going to see love, and stick any adjective on there, and that's what you'll get.
Yeah, it's interesting because I have studied people. Like I'm an observer. I'm a fly on the wall. I'm looking at everything and everyone. There's people who are like looking at somebody and I'm waiting for the things you have in common. So I'm looking at you and I'm agreeing every time I agree. The alternative is I'm waiting for you to say something I disagree with. So I'm listening. I'm listening. I disagree. No, I disagree. And now we go down that rabbit hole of, well, I disagree, and then you disagree with what I'm saying, and then we're both disagreeing. Right? So people, it's like people who intentionally film the road rage on the road. Cyclists, you have like a GoPro in their helmet. These people are creating more of those situations where drivers are getting too close to them because they've put their stupid camera on their head. They're waiting for the situation to happen to say, "Do you not know the highway code? You shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be driving." They literally creating more and more and more of that. So they're seeing it as they're focusing on bad drivers, whereas I'm just driving. I understand that there's always going to be bad drivers. If one
Yeah.
person cuts me up, it's just fucking life. They'll deal with it. Don't put any energy and time on that person. There's always going to be rain of the sun. So you focus on all the good things. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it's obviously we're having this conversation because we have similar interests, but this is a lot of what I talk to my clients with in regards to their lives when they start my program from the start to the end. The circumstances don't change much at all,
What
but
did you say in
because
your program?
the program that I lead, Mindset Makeover, it's a 90-day coaching program for women. I'm sorry if I haven't touched on that yet. We're just about to start our third round. It's quite incredible, but the simple choice to change their mindset is all that it takes. It's simple in theory, but not easy to execute. We all know the things that we need to be doing differently and better, but we often fail to actually do exactly what it is that we know that would make all of the difference. So, for example, one of my clients previously, her boss was just a real jerk. Just a real jerk. Bottom line, no matter how hard she tried, he was not receptive to her energy, but she was living in the anxiousness of it all, the negativity, the heaviness of their interactions. When she decided to instead come back with compassion, with empathy, with more of what's the word I'm looking for? Aloof attitude to his behavior, he changed because she changed. And now she's no longer allowing her days to be ruined by the attitude that she received in the email from her boss. Instead, it still happens, but it is what it is, and she moves on with her day in a happy way. And it's just so remarkable that her, along with many other women who have, moved through this program and beyond, have now seen firsthand, wow, it's simply my choice, my decision to find peace here that is allowing me to find peace here.
Yeah,
You
it's
know what
interesting. There's always an employee, say a football coach or a manager, who when they tell somebody to do something, has an attitude. And isn't it funny how that manager always then go to that same employee to get them to do everything? They sort of pick that person to do it all. So it's like, why are you picking that person? It's because they give you an attitude. So it's almost like somebody gets pleasure out of doing telling somebody to do something, knowing they react. So that pattern between your friend or whatever it was, the boss and the person, that dynamics were created at some point. Somewhere along the line, he would have said do something and she would have made a fuss about it. And so that relationship dynamics continued. So now when she changed, he changed. Because the alternative is that he has to change and then she changes. But as you said, it's about being responsible for the outcome through wisdom. One person has to change. Well, I'm not changing. They should be changing. That's, well, this is going to continue forever. You know, either change your job or become aware of this. And yeah, when you change the dynamics, like if you don't ask your boss if he wants a coffee because he's always a prick to you, if you the minute you ask your boss if he wants a coffee, it's the minute he's like, oh, she never asked me for a coffee and I'm really hard on her. I'm going to be a bit softer on her. So now she gives him the coffee and he's like, I'm sorry if I was hard on you. And boom, they've connected as human beings. And it's like
Without a doubt.
people who continually fight and argue all the time. They're punishing each other from the last argument and it just keeps going backwards and forwards. And I'm not forgiving her. She should be forgiving me first. And it's like, you have to understand that this is energy and you know what you put out, you're getting back. You've got to change this through your wisdom, and you can change any dynamics of any relationship, any human beings, just by knowing this, teaching them individually or telling them to be a certain way. Then the boss realizes that I've experienced this. When my friends were growing up, I got a person whose dad was really hard on him, and he was like, "You won't understand." I said, "Just trust me. Do this. Next time he says tidy your bedroom, just do it. In fact, tidy your bedroom before he asks you." Why? He doesn't care. He's not going to change. I said, trust me. Tidy it before he asks you. He'll notice you've done it before he's asked you. The dynamics will change. And it did. Somebody has to make that change. And the only way you can do that is through wisdom. Someone has to have the wisdom. And it goes back to like successful people are always going to get successful. And people who haven't got that seed never will make it. Because something has to change from that and that, a third person, like a middle ground, that seed, somebody crossing over and saying, look, you can have this life. That wisdom. If she didn't know that knowledge, she wouldn't have changed that boss dynamics. Whether she learnt about it, someone told her, that would have just been the same forever. Like ping pong table, just an automatic machine, just ping, 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 ping. You know, someone's got to come in. And it's so easily changeable. But it's like, how do you accumulate that wisdom in the first place? That's the hard part. Getting that mentor, that wisdom. Yeah.
I think people need to be more open-minded. And I don't say that in, a demanding way, but there's so much to be learned from podcasts, from books, from just exposing yourselves to different people, different conversations with the intent to listen and understand, and not just to respond. Right? Because frequently I find when conversating with somebody, it's only really an interjection of, oh, that happened to me once. Let me share my story. Or maybe adding fuel to the fire in a sense. It doesn't really end well ever when that happens. My parents always taught me that forgiveness is an inside job and that you should always kill people with kindness. What people do, their behavior, their attitude speaks volumes about who they are and actually nothing about who I am. We need to take responsibility for how we're showing up for ourselves and for those around us. And then hopefully, God willing, in turn, the people will be that much more receptive to engage in the same way back. And if not, then at least we're doing our part. But we can't expect from others what we're unwilling to do first on our own terms. And that goes back to Gandhi, right? Be the change you wish to see in the world. If you want your boss to stop being an ass, then you make sure that you're not giving him any reason to think that you're being an ass. plain and simple.
Yeah, I love gravestones, graveyards, because each person has a story, has a life, has a path, has a vision, has a family, it's like you can tune into all these energies, right? So you think about, we've only got one life and you've got to make the most of it, and you're living out your dream and your purpose, doing all this, and I'm doing this. In time, looking back, I'm going to be reflecting on, say, this part of my life, podcasting, and then I'll be dead, and that's the end of it. So you think about all these people in the graveyard. Did they live their life happy? Or did they just go down the pub and drink and smoke and just live an unhappy, depressed life? Or are they somebody who used to go country walks and go to the ocean and fish and had a neighborhood of people who sold mussels and prawns and crab and lived a great life. And so you sort of think, how would they feel looking back on their life? What would they change? And then you can reflect it to yourself, looking back on your life, what would you change? And you don't have to live your life in order to look back and do it. You just have to think, okay, this is how life works. You're either going to live in regret or you're not. But you're here, I've got no choice but to sort of be happy or not. And then you just have to like use the fear of death to get your shit together. Like people fear death. Why? Because they're so scared that they're not gonna do the things in life they want to do before they die. That's why they fear death. Because what they're saying is that I'm not doing the stuff I want to do. But going to that process of death, it really resets everything. So people who have like near-death experiences, they will say, you know, life changes. They appreciate everyone, and everything changes. So people need that fear of death, but we avoid death, the only guarantee in life. But you need to face it because it makes you realize, right, I'm here, I'm not happy, I need to do something.
Yeah.
And then that's when you find the purpose.
Hopefully people don't wait that long, but that's a prompt that I actually have my girls ponder within the program that I was just speaking of. You know, what legacy do you want to leave behind? What will people remember you for? What would those at your funeral say about you, about your life, looking back on it? And as you mentioned, you don't, or you shouldn't wait till that point to consider how that would look like, what that would sound like. Decide now to live on purpose and become unapologetic in your pursuit of happiness and fulfillment and love and all the things that we are meant to enjoy and explore, because life is too short for too many of us. So it's imperative that we start to appreciate the time that we have here while we have it, especially while it's good, because you never know, you could be locked up again for another pandemic.
It probably will happen.
Yeah, so life is for living, and I think it's crucial that we start to remember that more so now than ever. And of course, it all comes back to your mindset, because if that's not right, nothing else is going to fall into place, especially if you're healthy otherwise. You know, you could be eating all the kale salad, you could be going to the gym each and every single day, but if you're not emotionally fit, emotionally stable, then you can't expect to have your life reflect reflect someone that has it all together, in a sense. And all together is maybe even a bit too robust of a statement, but to just have things feeling okay.
Right. Plug anything you want to plug.
Okay, well, if any women here are listening and are interested in radically improving their life, I do have a 90-day coaching program designed specifically for you. We reprogram your mind, we manage your time, and essentially have you move from a life of anxiousness to a life that feels really flippin' aligned. If you're interested in learning more, of course, feel free to check me out. I'm on Instagram, Stormy Barbara, StormyBarbara. And my website's the same thing. My first and last name, stormybarbara.com. All the info that you could ever want or need is on there. I also teach yoga classes daily, virtually. So no matter where you are in the world, I'd love for you to come move with me on the mat. And my biggest passion in life thus far is just helping people redefine what fulfillment and gratification looks like on their terms, and then helping them do anything and everything necessary to get there. So if you are needing the tools, the accountability, the support to up level and get unstuck, then I am your girl. I'd be happy to help you. Otherwise, much love. And I wish anybody who is still listening at this point a very epic life, however long you have here. I hope that you've been filling your days up with lots of laughter and excitement. And I think that's it. I could go on and on forever because I'm a New Yorker and I'm super, super enthralled with all that I do, but I value everybody's time. So I think I'll leave it at that for now.
Right, I'm just going to press stop. Wait there.